The Russians are massively transferring troops and equipment from Crimea and Kherson region to Sumy, where they are conducting an active offensive, says the former advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, Andryushchenko. According to him, no less than 10 new self-propelled guns, an air defense complex and more than 40 trucks with manpower and ammunition were transported through Mariupol over the weekend. This is the largest transfer in the last 6 months, in principle, and the first similar one for the entire period of the war, Andryushchenko comments. Recently, a Tesh guerrilla movement said that the occupiers have begun to massively move equipment and air defense systems throughout the Crimean Peninsula. Often this process is uncoordinated and chaotic. It is noted that according to information from the movement's agents among the Russian armed forces, they are trying to strengthen security measures in Crimea. But on the ground, it all boils down to the fact that equipment is being transported back and forth without a specific plan, and it looks more like a panic to report to the authorities on the activities carried out. The situation is reminiscent of the period of 2023 to 2024, when Crimea was actively attacked, the guerrillas added. Atesh emphasized that they continue to monitor the actions of the Russians on the peninsula and pass on all important information to the Ukrainian defense forces. Russian military units appear to be within 29 kilometers of the city of Sumy, 3 years after Ukraine forced them out of the northern region, while also making new and symbolically important ground in the east. Kremlin claims to have retaken the village of Loknia, which had been liberated along with the rest of the Sumy region during Ukraine's 2022 spring counteroffensive. It is the latest settlement in the region to be retaken by Putin's forces in recent weeks. The city of Sumy, which is 200 miles northeast of Kyiv, was never occupied by Russia after the full-scale invasion, but Putin's forces have been bearing down on the regional capital. Volodymyr Zelensky warned last month that Russia had concentrated 50,000 troops on the Sumy front, and a series of settlements in the area have since fallen.
The Russian army has a very difficult situation in the Kursk region near the settlement of Tetkino. Ukrainian forces are advancing, the Russian armed forces are operationally surrounded. The Z Resource Northern Channel associated with the Russian army wrote about this. According to the channel, the Ukrainian armed forces have already broken through to the center of the village of Tetkino. The situation in the Tetkino direction is extremely difficult. The enemy is attacking almost without interruption. The Ukrainian armed forces have advanced to the center of Tetkino, as well as from the southeast to Popovo-Lezachi. In fact, all roads are cut off. Drones and artillery of Ukrainian armed forces make any attempts to supply suicidal. Our forces, mainly paratroopers, are in operational encirclement, wrote Z Channel. It is noted that despite the catastrophic situation, the command of the Russian armed forces does not give permission for the withdrawal of forces. Also, measures to strengthen the group in this area are not being taken. The Ukrainian OSINT project, Deep State, has not yet confirmed the information. According to its map, the Ukrainian armed forces control slightly more than 11 square kilometers of Kursk region territory in this area. At the same time, another 10 square kilometers are designated as a combat zone which is not controlled by either side. Recall in late March, Russian Chief of General Staff Valery Gerasimov, talking to Russian President Vladimir Putin, claimed that Russian forces have completely liberated Kursk Oblast from Ukrainian troops. Ukraine, however, continues to control small parts of Kursk Oblast, conducted small-scale incursions into nearby Belgorod Oblast, and now also attack Tetkino in southwestern Kursk Oblast. In addition to Tetkino, Ukrainian forces reportedly launched mechanized assaults on nearby Novyi Put, located east of Tetkino, along the international border. Russian sources reported repelling those attacks and stated that Ukrainian troops used mine-clearing equipment to breach defensive lines. One Russian source claimed Ukrainian forces had taken Novi Put, while others said the assault was unsuccessful. Meanwhile, elements of the Russian 98th VDV division are reportedly operating near Tetkino, according to Russian mill bloggers. Recently, Ukrainian military personnel using the HIMARS multiple launch rocket system accurately hit the location of Russian occupiers in Koronevo, Kursk region. As a result, grey-pink building with a section on the second floor almost completely destroyed. According to preliminary data, this building housed a permanent deployment point for Russian military personnel. Former spokesman for the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, retired Colonel, military expert Vladislav Zeleznev, commented on the new attack on Russian facilities in the Black Sea and the Crimean Bridge. We don't yet know the exact level of damage on the Crimean Bridge because the explosion occurred underwater. Damage is not visible on the surface of the water. It is difficult to say what exactly was damaged underwater. I think the Russians are currently conducting an expert assessment, but they are unlikely to share this data with the general public, he emphasized in an interview with Glavred. The expert says that one of the supports of the automobile part of the Crimean Bridge is probably damaged, but the railway connection apparently was not seriously damaged, so the bridge's capacity has not decreased. It can be assumed that this was a trial run, most likely with the use of an underwater unmanned strike system. I think that in the future, such systems will be used to continue to destroy critically important elements for the functioning of the bridge. In particular, we are talking about the key supports on which the arch of the Kerch Bridge rests, under which all ships heading to the waters of the Sea of Azov and in the opposite direction pass. If these supports are seriously damaged, there will no longer be talk of the usual mode of movement. Transport communication will either be completely stopped or permanently limited, he is sure. The interlocutor clarifies that the defense forces are actively working on implementing this very task. In the case of this operation, the SBU is involved, but undoubtedly a number of other structures were also involved. The Navy, possibly the air component, since explosions were recorded at military airfields in occupied Crimea before the attack. This could have been aimed at reducing the activity of Russian aviation. And of course, devices such as Sea Baby and Magura V5 also participated and covered the operation from the surface of the water, Zeleznev added. It is noted that a gas production platform in the Black Sea, near temporarily occupied Crimea, was on fire. The facility had been used by Russian forces for military purposes. The Crimean Wind Monitoring Group said that a naval engagement occurred in the area. However, details regarding the forces and assets involved remain unknown. Russia has been using gas production platforms in the Black Sea for military purposes. These platforms are used to deploy troops, install small radar systems for monitoring air and surface activity, signal relays for drones, and reconnaissance equipment to track the movements of Ukrainian forces. It is worth noting that a previous strike on Russian-occupied gas platforms took place on May the 19th. During that operation, the Neva radar, storage facilities, and a residential unit were destroyed. The operation, carried out by the 13th Main Directorate of the Military Counterintelligence Department of the Security Service of Ukraine, was conducted using both naval and aerial drones. Within a single special operation, the SSU specialists used two types of drones which demonstrated the effectiveness of working in tandem. We once again reminded the enemy that no Russian trash has a special place in the Black Sea, said the Security Service of Ukraine.